these days, sisters and brothers, that the Lord's having us doing, and the service that the Lord's having us doing, is something that have not been done. You know, it's just like they did a thing during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. So they had a feast that they found a law, a book with the law in it. And Israel hadn't practiced this in a long time. And to tell you the truth, Israel had huge droughts of keeping the Lord's high days. The Lord would send them into captivity. Excuse me. And then they lose everything. Eventually somebody will find the book of the law and they go back and read it. Everybody's in shock. So the same thing here, sisters and brothers. What we're doing here haven't been done a long time. Then you have the people that call themselves us that do this. They don't have a clue of what's going on. Because they can't even come to the realization that you can't have 2 New Years in 7 months apart. So that lets you know where they are. But we're going to get this going on with this Feast of Tabernacles, sisters and brothers, because this is an important feast. This is the Feast of Ingathering. Now I'm looking, and I'm looking, sisters and brothers, because I'm looking at the crowd that we have it. And I don't know, it's probably because a lot of people cannot get off work. But the whole thing is, this is an important feast. Let's start at Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Leviticus chapter 23. I want the urge to bring me some water up here, please. Leviticus 23, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. 23 and 1. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying,
Speak
unto the children of Israel, and say unto them,
go ahead,
concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts.
Now the Lord lets you know these are the feasts of the Lord, sisters and brothers. These are not the feast of the Jews. These are the feast of the Lord's. And once you understand that, then you start to understand that these feasts are supposed to be kept by everybody, because these feasts represent everybody. Now we're going to skip down to verse 4 and go ahead. Verse 4 and go ahead.
These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations.
Go ahead.
Which ye shall proclaim in their seasons.
Now, even holy convocation, which are solemn assemblies, sisters and brothers, which you shall proclaim in their season, because everything is in order. The feasts are in order. It's just like you can't switch anything up and have it like you want. It's just like the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It has to come after Passover. Right. Because the Passover is which wipe away your sins, which is represented by leavening. So everything has to be in order. So these are the feasts of the Lord. You should have them in their order. Now let's skip down to verse 33 and deal with this particular feast. Verse 33. And go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and saying, the 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles.
Go ahead.
For 7 days unto the Lord.
Now this is, I want to comment. I have to do this all the time. It's because for years, sisters and brothers, we took the Feast of Tabernacles. I'm getting a ring here. Please, let's do something about it. Now, for years, we kept the Feast of Tabernacles, and we just kept it 8 days like it looked like we should, until we got into the understanding that that 7 days means 7 days. You cannot get 8 days out of 7. So once that was finally pointed out, then somebody had to go back to the spiritual drawing board and do some research and find out what that 8th day was about, and we did. So now, Feast of Tabernacles, he said you should do it for 7 days. Go ahead and read.
On the first day shall be in holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein.
And you shall do no servile work therein. It defines itself, no servile work. If you don't know what servile means, go to your dictionary. Go ahead and read.
7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you.
Go ahead.
And you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and you shall do no servile work therein.
So on the 8th day you have to make an offering. But this 8th day we're going to deal with 8 days from now. Because it is another feast altogether. And it's a solemn assembly, but what most people don't understand, all of God's feasts are solemn. Every one of them. So now, but you should have a solemn assembly on the 1st and the 8th day. Now, but we're dealing with this tabernacle. And who's supposed to be here? It's just Israel. All the males. Is everybody supposed to attend this feast? Let's go into Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. Deuteronomy chapter 16. Somewhere along the line, sisters and brothers, people have gotten the idea that these feasts were supposed to be done by Israel and Israel alone. It was not. Everybody was supposed to keep this feast. It's just that we failed and didn't do our job. Therefore, the rest of the nation didn't figure they was a part of this thing. But everybody was supposed to take part in this. Let's start at verse 13. Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, and verse 13. 16 and 13. Go ahead.
Thou shalt observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days. After that thou hast gathered in thy corn and thy wine.
Go ahead.
And thou shalt rejoice in thy feast, thou and thy son, and thy daughter, and thy manservant, and thy maidservant, and the Levite, the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow that are within thy gates.
So that means that everybody's supposed to do this, don't it? Even a stranger. Go ahead and read.
7 days shalt thou keep a solemn feast unto the Lord thy God in the place which the Lord shall choose, because the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thine increase and in all the works of thine hands. Therefore thou shalt surely rejoice.
Now, he said 7 days you should keep it. He called the whole feast solemn, didn't he?
That's right.
And he said, you shall rejoice. Go ahead and read.
3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose in the feast of unleavened bread.
See, this is why, sisters and brothers, we don't feast on nothing else. You deal with it the way the book defined it. Like you have some people that are having feasts on trumpets. They say, well, Brother Boo, is that wrong? I'm not calling it wrong. But I'm saying is I didn't read that. And the reason we have feast on these is because it says 3 times a year you should come before the Lord. And the feast of unleavened bread, go ahead.
And in the feast of weeks.
And in the feast of weeks, go ahead.
And in the feast of tabernacles.
And in the feast of tabernacles. He used the word feast, didn't he? Go ahead and read.
And they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee.
See, these feasts are not supposed to be, we're doing it, sisters and brothers. We're doing it from the yearly tithe, but these feasts are supposed to be supported separate, with separate tithes, with separate offerings. But we don't try that, sisters and brothers. But I just have to let you know. That's why you're supposed to lay aside and say, when you come to this feast, don't come empty. In other words, this is one time you are supposed to bring something to the Lord. Now, let's go into Exodus, the 23rd chapter. Exodus 23. And we're going to start at verse 14. Exodus 23 and verse 14. Because this feast have another name. 23 and 14. 23 and 14. Okay, go ahead.
3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year.
Now, he said it very clear, didn't we? You understand? Now, if you go anywhere else, then it's not written here. Go ahead and read.
Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month Abib.
Go ahead.
For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors, which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering.
The feast of harvest, that's the feast of weeks. That's the feast of Pentecost. Then it said the feast of ingathering. Go ahead and read.
Which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field.
Now, this is the other name for Feast of Tabernacles. It is called the Feast of Ingathering. When it's gathered in the labors out of the field, sisters and brothers, the fruit that's being gathered is us. That's the spiritual side of it. So when you have ingathering, that means that the Lord has gathered his whole house. And once after this feast is over with, it is all over with. That's the Feast of Ingathering. Now let's go into Leviticus, the 25th chapter. Leviticus chapter 25. Because like I say all the time, the Lord don't do ritualistic stuff. What he do, it has a meaning. Leviticus 25, we're going to start reading at verse 1. You know, that's why people ask me about, well, don't you keep this feast or that feast? I said, because it's not written in the 23rd chapter of Leviticus. The Lord have all his feasts there, and every one of them means something. Well, don't you think? I said, I think one thing, God know what he's doing. Well, you know, people done tampered with the book. I said, if they done tampered with the book to thwart God's plan, then God ain't a very strong God, is he? That's why Paul talk about the shield of faith, sisters and brothers. You're either going to serve this God or you not. Yes, sir. And that's the way I look at it. If I can't serve him all the way, I won't serve him none. If I can't believe what he have written, I don't believe any of it. It's all that simple. Verse 1, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them,
go ahead.
When ye come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord.
Go ahead.
6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard, and gather in the fruit thereof.
Go ahead.
But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard.
Now, there's two things you get out of this. If man had followed this instruction, then you wouldn't have to come up with all these chemicals to grow food. The land would rejuvenate itself. All it needed was 1 year, the 7th year. But then this is going someplace else. Skip down to verse 8. Verse 8 and go ahead.
And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee. 7 times 7 years.
Go ahead.
And the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall you make the trumpet sound throughout all your land.
Now, what have we get here, sisters and brothers? 7 times 7, that's the year and 1. That's 50 years. So this is the year of Pentecost.
That's right.
This is what the day of Pentecost represents. This is the year that the Lord is going to come. That's why I said a trumpet of Jubilee. You should have the trumpet of Jubilee to sound when? On the day of atonement. What day is that? That's the 10th day. That is the day that the Lord comes. Because the Lord tells you everything when he's going to come. First is the trumpet blowing. That's to announce his coming. And on the day of atonement, that is when he is coming. And once you blow this trumpet in the year of Jubilee, that's the year that we should go rejoice, sister and brother, because the Lord is going to be coming. And then everybody is going to turn to their own land and to their own people, and everybody's going to go back where the Lord put them in the beginning, even Israel. But let's look at this trumpet of Jubilee, because this brings the Lord on the 10th day. Let's go into Matthew, the 24th chapter. Matthew chapter 24. See, this is what this chapter is all about. This book is all about, is letting you know what the Lord is doing. This lets you know the year of Pentecost, which is represented by the day of Pentecost, is really the year that the Lord is going to come. Matthew 24. Matthew 24, and we're going to start at verse 27. Now, the Lord doing him in his 24th chapter, sister and brother, because the time going to come when somebody going to tell you that the Lord is already here. He is in the temple. He's in the secret place. He said, if you hear that, go not forth. I'm going to show you how I'm going to come. Let's start at verse 27. Verse 27. Go ahead.
For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west,
go ahead,
so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
He said, now when I come, you're going to see me coming from the sky. And those that have some understanding will know that that will not be no surprise, because they done made another stupid movie called Left Behind. He said, so now, when I come, I'm not going to sneak up on the earth. You're going to see me coming. What time is that when I come? Skip down to verse 29. Verse 29 and go ahead.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened.
Go ahead.
And the moon shall not give her light. And the stars shall fall from heaven.
Go ahead.
And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
That's going to be a whole lot of stuff. Don't look like it's no secret to me, does it? Whole lot of stuff. Go ahead and read.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven.
And
then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn.
Go ahead.
And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
So now look, sisters and brothers. When the Lord get ready to come, a whole lot of activity is going to go on. Like you get with this guy, this a Gentile preacher some years back, some months back, talking about the blood moon. I said, well, then what about the stars? Why not the seven? Why is that the sun don't go black? You understand? Why is it that the heaven don't roll back like a scroll? So much for the blood moon. You got to see all this before the Lord comes. Ain't going to be no big secret, sisters and brothers. That's why I say ain't nobody going to be stole off the earth. The Lord said, I'm God, I'm coming, and I'm going to take this earth down by force. Go ahead and read.
And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
So now once he come, he going to gather his people Israel. This is elect, sisters and brothers. No matter how stupid we have been, we're still the Lord's elect. And he's going to gather you. And again, too, you get brothers that's talking about, let's go back to the land. It's time to go now. Let's see when the Lord say you're going to go. Let's go into Isaiah the 27th chapter. Because he says he's going to send his angel with the sound of a great trumpet. And he's going to gather his elect. Actually, this is from one end of the earth to the other, sisters and brothers. Isaiah 27. Isaiah chapter 27. Because the Lord have everything laid out. The Lord is real thorough, sisters and brothers. I mean, everything is in place. There is no accidents with the Lord. That's why you don't come out of your mind and put things on the table, sisters and brothers, unless you can read it out of this book. Because you got too much falsehood going on, and far be it from a servant of God to put your portion out there. Because the Lord has put everything in place. Everything's in place. That's why I know that Israel as a nation have not gone back home, because all this stuff got to happen. Let's start at verse 12. 27 and 12. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall beat off from the channel of the river unto the stream of Egypt. And ye shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel.
That let me know that whether you're a crowd or whether you're an individual hid in a foreign country, hid to the whole world, Lord know you there. He said, I'm going to gather you one by one. I don't care if it's 1,000 or one individual hid in a closet. He's going to send somebody in there and say, come on, it's time to go home. But when is this going to happen? Go ahead and read.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown.
Go ahead.
And they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and the outcasts in the land of Egypt, and shall worship worship the Lord in the holy mount at Jerusalem.
So now, not only in Assyria and Egypt, but everywhere else, sisters and brothers. But it's not going to happen until that great trumpet is blown. Then when the people go back, they ain't going to be using the word, well, the Jews are back. They're going to say Israel is back. Because Jew is one tribe, sisters and brothers. So everybody, time somebody tell me, well, the Jews this and the Jews that, with your conversation, I know that you don't have no understanding. But that great trumpet's going to be blown, and they're going to come from all over, sisters and brothers, and they're going to go back to the land. But when is that going to be done? On the year of Pentecost, which is the 50th year, the day after the Sabbath. Let's go back to Leviticus, the 25th chapter. Back to Leviticus 25. Because everybody have an opinion, but don't nobody want to read. See, but when you don't read and everybody have an opinion, everybody looks smart. Until somebody opened the book and read, then all of a sudden they went stupid. And it's too easy to read the book, sisters and brothers. One thing, if I read something wrong and I stand before the Lord and he said, well, you said this wrong, and I could pop this book over, Lord, it's written here. I figure I'm innocent. Being the Lord is a fair God, he won't do me. That's why I know that he's going to put this book in, it's going to be right. That's right. So when I read it, it's going to be read right. 25 and 10. So now when the Lord comes, he's going to send his angel with the sound of a great trumpet, and he's going to gather his elect. Go ahead and read.
And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family.
So he's going to proclaim liberty on that 50th year. It's going to be a year of jubilee, and you're going to return everybody to his family, everybody to his land, and everybody to his possession, sisters and brothers. Everybody. And the Lord knows who you are. He knows what your family tree is. It's just like I had Jeremiah to buy a plot of land from his nephew. When he go back, somebody out of Jeremiah's lineage is going to have that land because that is his inheritance. The Lord had it so even the kings of Israel could not take a man's inheritance that he gave to him according to the family and according to his tribe. It's just like a brother was going to go, I'm going to go buy some land in Israel. I said, so when Israel go back, if it's not your inheritance, you're going to have to give it up. You can use the money to do something else. Because everybody's going to go back to the possession. And this is what people don't understand, sisters and brothers. Everybody is going to turn to their own people, and they all shall flee to their own land. I mean, everybody. Because everybody on this planet have a plot that they come from. What verse are we?
We have verse 11.
Go ahead.
A jubilee shall that 50th year be unto you.
You know, jubilee, that's great rejoicing, ain't it? Shall that 50th year be unto you? Go ahead and read.
You shall not sow, neither reap that which groweth of itself in it, nor gather the grapes in it of thy vine undressed.
Go ahead.
For it is the jubilee. It shall be holy unto you. You shall eat the increase thereof out of the field.
Go ahead.
And the year of this jubilee you shall return every man unto his possession.
That means that everybody, I don't care how remote or how distant it might be, sisters and brothers, everybody have a possession on this planet. Because everybody have a lineage. And it's not hard to chase your lineage because the Lord fixed it so the male is the lineage that you chase yourself back through. You got a possession. The Lord gave you something. And it goes all the way back to the 12 tribes of Israel. And even the Gentiles, they have possession, and the strangers. Because the Lord tell you in the 10th chapter of Genesis, when he's talking about the Gentiles, he said, look, he called them according to their land and according to their country. Everybody have a possession. Because the Lord is not going to come and take everybody to heaven and put all the bad people in hell before he set this thing in order for 1,000 years. But it all come down to this last feast, Feast of Ingathering, sisters and brothers. Because this day is going to be the last day. Let's go into 1 Thessalonians, the 4th chapter. 1 Thessalonians, the 4th chapter. Because it's going to be the end of it, sisters and brothers. But don't nothing come, don't nothing happen until the Lord comes. This is what people need to understand. Israel need to be understand. Because I'm going to tell you something. To be in the land before the Lord comes, you will put yourself in great danger. Because when that beast and false prophet take over, and false prophet move into the holy place in the temple, if you are there, you're going to receive a mark of the beast if you want to exist. And if you refuse to take it, you can get killed. But if you do take it, then you got to deal with the Lord. So it is a no-win situation, sisters and brothers. Bad move to go back to the land and try to set up house right now. Bad move. 1 Thessalonians, the 4th chapter, let's start reading at verse 13. 4 and 13. Okay, go ahead.
But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep.
Go ahead.
That ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again,
go ahead.
Even so them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him.
See, all this going to happen in the year of Jubilee, sister and brother. In the year of Pentecost. This is the year when everything takes place, and it's going to happen at the end of the year. Go ahead and read.
For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep.
Go ahead.
For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, and with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God.
That's the trumpet of Jubilee, sister and brother. That's going to be blown on the 8th, the 10th day, which is the Day of Atonement. The trumpet of Jubilee. The Lord tell you all over, sister and brother. That great trumpet shall be blown. Go ahead and read.
And the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds.
Go ahead.
To meet the Lord in the air. And so shall we ever be with the Lord.
We're going to meet him in the air. The people that are changed and raised going to meet the Lord in the air. Well, Brother Boy, that mean that you go on to heaven or meet are two different things than going to where you were. So now that we done met him in the air, the question is begged to be answered is, where do we go from there? We're going to go into Zechariah the 14th chapter and find out. See, the problem is, sister and brother, we have New Testament Christians and we have Old Testament scholars, and both of them stay out of the other testament, so what you have is half a knowledge. Half a knowledge is inadequate. I don't care from what direction you get it. You want to pay your rent, you got half your rent. What you think going to happen when you keep coming up with them half of rents? You're going to end up with a whole setting out. Zechariah the 14th chapter. Zechariah chapter 14, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Verse 3, rather. Because this is the coming of the Lord. Zechariah 14 and verse 3. Go ahead.
Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle.
Now, see, this is what people don't understand. The Lord is coming to do battle, sister and brother, because he's going to take this earth down by force. So he said he coming just like he was in the day of battle. Go ahead and read.
And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives.
Where is that?
Which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof, toward the east and toward the west.
So now his feet are going to hit on the Mount of Olives. That's the last place that Jesus' feet touched when he left this earth. He hasn't been back since, sister and brother. And the mountain is going to split right down in the middle. Go ahead and read.
And there shall be a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall remove toward the north.
Go ahead.
And half of it toward the south.
Go ahead.
And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains. For the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yeah, ye shall flee, like as ye fled from before the earthquake and the days of Uzziah, the king of Judah.
Go ahead.
And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with him.
And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with him. Where did he get these saints from, sister and brother? They had to meet him in the air. Zechariah wrote this before Paul wrote Thessalonians. And Paul lets you know that this what's happening is according to what's written, sisters and brothers. So if the Lord is going to come and bring all the saints with him, and the saints and the Lord is in heaven, and the saints are in the ground, or either on top of the ground, how else can we come with him except we meet him? We had to meet him in the air, otherwise prophecy would be wrong. So being that he said that we got to come with him, and we are in two different locations, then we had to meet him somewhere in between here and heaven. Then we all came right on back down to the earth. And when the Lord get here, let's see who's going to run it. Skip down to verse 9 and read it.
And the Lord shall be king over all the earth. And that day shall there be one Lord, and his name one.
The Lord shall be king over all the earth, sisters and brothers. And there ain't going to be one Lord then. He ain't brooking no mess. You're going to deal with him, or he going to deal with you. And then you're going to have to keep this that you said is for the Jews. Skip down to verse 16 and go ahead.
And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles.
Now, everybody that's left, sisters and brothers, from all the nations, they are going to go up from year to year and worship before the Lord, and they are going to have to keep this feast. Think about it. They got to keep this feast. If they don't, what's going to happen to them? Go ahead and read.
And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain.
Now, your crops ain't going to grow without water, is it? Go ahead and read.
And if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles.
Now, so all this feast that they call the Feast of the Jews, you're going to find out is everybody's feast. So now anybody that don't come up and keep this Feast of Tabernacle, they are not getting no rain on their property. I don't care who it is. If the family of Egypt don't come up, you ain't getting no rain. Go ahead and read.
This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles.
The punishment of all nations? Yes. Because the Lord will come back, and once he's set up, everybody got to go to Jerusalem to get their orders. Because that's where the Lord's going to go from, sisters and brothers. That's why when we set these feasts according to Jerusalem time. Everybody holler, you wrong, you got the wrong days and this and that. Look, I'm going to tell you something. If you're on the West Coast and you use California time, it's going to be different from Chicago time. And if you're in another location that's in another time zone on the earth, it's going to be different from the other time zone. So why not do what the Lord said? The Lord going to go from Jerusalem. So if you have it on Jerusalem time, then everybody's keeping it at the right time. That's why the Lord said, let us reason together.
That's right.
Oh, brother, we kept it 2 days ago. Yeah, you was in California. I was in Chicago. These things, sisters and brothers, we take into consideration, and everybody's hollering, y'all wrong. I said, that's all right. When we stand before the Lord, we see who is doing what. So now, everybody that's left are going to have to come up. Well, Brother Bull, you know, that's an old prophecy. Let's go into Revelation 15 chapter. Let's go in the last book in the Bible and see what's going to happen. Revelation chapter 15. Because, sisters and brothers, the Lord, this is serious business here, and people are going to find out it's serious business. It's not according to what you believe, not according to what you feel. It's not according to how articulate you are. It's according to what thus said the Lord. If you don't do this thing right, you may as well not do it at all. Revelation the 15th chapter, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Revelation 15 and 1. Okay, go ahead.
And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous.
Go ahead.
7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire.
Go ahead.
And them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God.
Now this is when the Lord has come back. Go ahead and read.
And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty.
Go ahead.
Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name?
Go ahead.
For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest.
He said, you say, oh, you only are holy, and all nations going to come before you and worship. We know why all nations going to come, don't we? Because if they don't come, it's not going to rain on their crop. The Lord know how to get your attention. If you can't stand water, he'll bring the rain on you. If you can't stand fire, he set your house on fire. He know how to get your attention. So if you won't come up and keep the Feast of Tabernacles, it ain't going to rain. After a while, you're going to get pretty hungry, ain't you? Can't eat dirt, sisters and brothers. You know, I was raised in the South. We used to eat that clay dirt. It was real good, right? But you couldn't make a meal out of it. So the Lord know how to get your attention. So you're going to have to come up from all over the world, sisters and brothers, and keep this feast. And this feast is supposed to be kept for 7 days. Now let's go back to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, because there's several things we need to look at about this feast that the Lord had Israel do. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. And we're going to start at verse 39. Leviticus 23 and verse 39. 23, and we're going to start reading at verse 39. Okay, go ahead.
Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the fruit of the land,
go ahead.
You shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath.
So both of these are Sabbath days. You're supposed to have a solemn assembly on these 2 days. Go ahead and read.
And you shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, and branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days.
Now, also, you're supposed to get leaves off trees and everything and rejoice before the Lord 7 days. Keep your marker here. We're going to come back here. We want to pursue this a little bit before we finish that. Let's go into Nehemiah, the 8th chapter. Nehemiah, the 8th chapter. That comes right after 2 Chronicles, after Ezra, which comes right after 2 Chronicles. Nehemiah chapter 8. And we're going to start reading at verse 14. Nehemiah 8 and 14. Because you're supposed to get tree limbs and branches. I want you to see what you're supposed to do with these tree limbs and branches. Because sometimes we have a reading problem. We don't know what things mean. Verse 14. Go ahead.
And they found written in the law, which the Lord had commanded by Moses, that the children of Israel should dwell in booths in the feast of the 7th month.
Okay, so you should dwell in booths in the feast of the 7th month. Go ahead and read.
And that they should publish and proclaim in all their cities and in Jerusalem, saying, Go forth unto the mount and fetch olive branches and pine branches and myrtle branches and palm branches and branches of thick trees to make booths, as it is written.
So I want you to go and get all these tree branches and bring them and make boots, just like it is written. See, when Ezra and Nehemiah went and read the book of the law, they didn't read a different book than we read. Sometimes people read this and try and argue with me. Look, I know what law, I don't have to read what Ezra and Nehemiah. I can go and read what they read. Y'all understand me? So we will get matters of fact and not matters of emotion. So you go and you get these branches and you make you some boots. Go ahead and read.
So the people went forth and brought them and made themselves boots. Everyone upon the roof of his house.
Wait a minute now. Everyone upon the roof of his house. Where else?
And in their courts.
And in their courts?
And in the courts of the house of God. And in the street of the water gate.
Go ahead.
And the street of the gate of Ephraim.
And so they mean they set these boots up everywhere, didn't they? Go ahead and read.
And all the congregation of them that were come again out of the captivity made booths and sat under the booths. For since the days of Joshua the son of Nun unto that day had not the children of Israel done so. And there was a very great gladness. Also day by day, from the first day unto the last day, he read in the book of the law of God, and they kept the feast 7 days, and on the 8th day was a solemn assembly according unto the manner.
Now, we're going to see how long that they dwell in these boots, sister and brother. But first we're going to show you that these boots are temporary dwelling. You know, you get people that get tents and set up tents and go outside. Sisters and brothers, Israel had tents. So why just set up so if that's the case, then the Lord would have said, well, you know, just set your tent up out there and go into it.
That's right.
Then you got Gentiles, they're going to go all out of town. Well, let's go to the hotel, you know, the family thing. The Lord told you what to do, sisters and brothers. Being that you can't do this nowadays, then you have to deal with the meaning of it. These boots are temporary dwelling. And these boots represent this very flesh and blood body we have. That's why he did it in the Feast of Tabernacles, because the body is also called the tabernacle. Ain't that correct? Let's go into 2 Peter and pursue it some. 2 Peter, the 1st chapter. That's why you get people do stuff wrong and you call them out, they mad at you. But they don't lie to you. You have sisters and brothers when in the Memphis class some years back. And they went somewhere in the wilderness somewhere and set up a tent. I said, you do it again, you're out of here. You ain't going to bring no Gentile ignorance to Israel or God. We are the priests. We set the order. And if we can't take our position, then it just don't get executed because the Lord won't let nobody else do it, sisters and brothers. This is what we got to understand. We have to do this thing. That's why the world is messed up now. Because when we went into captivity in the last of us in 7 A.D., when Titus took us out and scattered us all over the Mediterranean, the African side of the Mediterranean, sisters and brothers, that's where they got you from. In fact, you are directly from Timbuktu, Mali. We can prove that. But the whole thing is, once they did that in 7 A.D., then the word of God fell to the ground. Now you got everybody in heaven that's supposed to be there. Now you got everybody that died is in hell that's supposed to be there. But then I have a problem. If everybody's in heaven and everybody's in hell, who is there to judge? Look like you've been judged already. Now you got your two bodies. You got you a tabernacle in heaven. But then the Lord going to raise this old tabernacle that's going to be on earth. Now you got your problem. You can't decide which one of them you're going to live in. In other words, sister and brother, I'm just showing you about this bad understanding. But I don't lay it to the feet of the Gentile. This was on us. We were supposed to teach it. The Lord showed you that. That's why all nations went to Sabbath. That's why he picked him 12 apostles from among Israel. That's why when he got to send apostle to the Gentiles, he picked another Israelite. Because that is the order of things, that is protocol. And we got brothers running around telling me Gentiles can teach, not according to nothing what you can read out this book. And if you don't read it out of the book, you're a false prophet like the rest of them. But the whole thing, sister and brother, the Lord set this in order. See, people get me wrong when I say stuff like this. The Lord set this in order. The same Lord said that Israel is his priest as the one said, thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay, I feel like this brother's a nice brother. He can commit adultery and get away. No, you can't because the Lord said you can't. Either you're going to serve the Lord or you are not. And anytime you put something false out there, you are a false prophet. I got news for you. Most of them came from among Israel. Because you done heard the word backslide. That's talking to Israel. Gentiles didn't have nothing to slide back from. You didn't have it in the first place. So Israel is backslid. You had the law. You had the God of Israel. You had all of his statutes. All his holy days. And you backslid from them. So Gentiles and the stranger, they're doing the best they can. It is hard to plant a potato and you ain't got a seed. But they try. So these temporary boots, sister and brother, they ain't talking about tents. That's why he got all kind of leaves. They know after a certain day, it's going to wither up and dry away. You get the point, sister and brother? Because you've already cut it away from the tree and you removed it from its substance. So after a matter of days, it's going to dry up. I don't care how nice and sealed it. Eventually, it's going to dry up. The leaves going to crumble, and it's going to come to nothing. Because it is meant to show you that this is a temporary house. Now, let's 2 Peter, the first chapter, and we're going to start reading at verse 13. 2 Peter 1 and verse 13. This is Peter warning these people, look, I think it's good for me to keep reminding you of the word of the Lord before I die. Verse 13, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it meet, as long as I am in this tabernacle, to stir you up by putting you in remembrance.
Go ahead.
Knowing that shortly I must put off this my tabernacle, even as our Lord Jesus Christ hath showed me.
He said, as long as I'm in this body, I'm going to stir you up. Because the Lord has showed me pretty soon, I'm going to have to be up out of this body. Go ahead and read.
Moreover, I will endeavor that ye may be able after my decease to have these things always in remembrance.
So that's what he means. That's after he died. That don't mean I'm going to get up out this body and go on to heaven now. In other words, the day going to come that this body is going to die. Because this body is not immortal. It is mortal. Man sinned against God before he put the immortality fix on it. Therefore, he said, hey, I ain't going to let you do it now. But he said, he got to put off this tabernacle. But so what time is that? Is when he died. Let's go on to 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter, and pursue it a little bit. And Paul's writing. You know, see, people read Paul's writing and they take everything somewhere he didn't intend for them to go. 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. And we're going to start at verse 1. 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. Okay. 2 Corinthians 5 and 1. 5 and 1. I know it's kind of rough with the writing in here. That's why in our new class that we building, there's going to be so much light in there you can see the shadow. You can't even see the shadow. It's going to light it out. Because we are built on reading, sisters and brothers. Because if each soul's got to work out their own salvation, that means each soul got to know this for themselves. I can't save you. I can only save me. I can tell you how to get salvation. I can read it to you. But when it comes down to it, it's up to you what you're going to do about it. That's why I tell people all the time, read the book. And put some insulation around you. How do you insulate yourself? Read the word and don't deal with imagination. One thing about imagination, tomorrow it can be different than it was. But if you read the same thing in the same spot, it's going to be there. This book has been there for years, sisters and brothers, thousands of years. 1 Corinthians 15 and 5. Go ahead.
For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved. 2
Corinthians. I'm sorry. I thought I said first. See, that lets you know I'm flesh and blood. You can't trust man.
2 Corinthians 5 and 1.
2 Corinthians 5 and 1. And I'm looking at it too. 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter, and verse 1. 5 and 1. Because it is imperative that you read this stuff yourself. Because you got to work out your own salvation. You got to do it. Verse 1, go ahead.
For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God.
Go ahead.
And house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens.
See, now this is what throw a lot of people off. Well, see, he done built us a house in the heavens. But we're going to pursue this whole thing a little bit. Go ahead and read.
For in this we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed upon with our house which is from heaven.
So if you was groaning that much, Paul, all you got to do is commit suicide and you gone. But go ahead and read.
If so be that being clothed, we shall not be found naked. For we that are in this tabernacle do groan, being burdened, not for that we would be unclothed, but clothed upon, that mortality might be swallowed up of life.
Wait a minute. He says, not that we want to die, we want a better body. We want an immortal body. We groan to get in this new tabernacle when mortality is swallowed up of life. What life? Eternal life.
That's right.
Now let's go and find out what Paul is talking about here. Let's go into 1 Corinthians. Back up to 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter. See, because Paul asks questions that is never asked in church, sisters and brothers. That's why I can't understand why so many people use the writing of Paul, but they don't use, but they're selective. You cherry pick Paul's writing. Because he's going to say something here that you don't ever hear said in church. Except for the Israeli God, we say it all the time. Verse 35. 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 35. Okay, go ahead.
But some man will say, how are the dead raised up?
How are the dead raised up?
And with what body do they come?
And with what body do they come? Wait a minute, we're talking body here, aren't we? Right. Go ahead and read.
Thou fool, that which thou sowest is not quickened except it die.
In other words, that which you that the sower is not made alive until it die, except it die. Go ahead and read.
And that which thou sowest not that body that shall be, but bear grain.
Oh, so now we're about to get some sense out of this thing. That which you sow, you don't sow that body that shall be, but it bear grain. In other words, if you want a corn to come out of the ground, you have to put a kernel of corn in it, don't you? And if you don't have no corn, you don't have no stalk of corn coming. So that without this body, you can't exist. Because this have to be planted or changed to have the body to come. Y'all understand what I'm saying? We're going to see if we're going to get up out of this body, or is the body going to be changed? What verse?
We're in the middle of 37.
Finish it.
But bear grain. It may chance of wheat or of some other grain. But God giveth it a body as it hath pleased him.
Go ahead.
And to every seed his own body.
You got your own body. Go ahead. That means I ain't going to wake up in Antoine's body.
That's right.
Go ahead and read.
All flesh is not the same flesh. But there's one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial.
So all flesh is not the same. Beasts one, birds one, but there are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial. Celestial is heavenly and terrestrial is earthly. Go ahead and read.
But the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another.
Go ahead.
There's one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars.
Go ahead.
But one star differeth from another star in glory.
Go ahead.
So also is the resurrection of the dead.
So also is a resurrection of the dead. Go ahead.
It is sown in incorruption. It is sown in corruption. It is raised in incorruption.
Pay attention now. It is sown. In other words, when you put them in the ground, it's a corruptible body that can decompose. But it is raised in incorruption that can't decompose.
That's right.
Go ahead and read.
It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory.
Go ahead.
It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body.
It is sown a natural body.
It is raised a spiritual body.
It is raised a spiritual body. Can't you see this body that God gave us at birth is what he is working with. He ain't going to take you up out of this body and take you and put you in another body. He going to fix this one. God is perfect. He don't have to say, well, this old house, I can't fix it, so I'm going to give him a new one. Don't work like that. I'm going to fix it. What verse are we?
We're in the middle of 44.
Go ahead and read.
There's a natural body.
There's a natural body.
And there's a spiritual body.
We're talking bodies here, aren't we?
That's right.
We ain't talking puffs of smoke. We ain't talking about a little old person dwelling inside of this body here looking through my eyes. We're talking about this body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. Go ahead and read.
And so it is written. The first man, Adam, was made a living soul.
And don't nobody pay no attention to that. Paul just co-signed the 2nd chapter of Genesis. Said the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils, and man became a living soul. Now, Paul just said the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. Right. Did they say the same thing? Out of the mouth of 2 or 4 more witnesses, sisters, brother, is a fact established. Go ahead and read.
The last Adam was made a quickening spirit.
Let's find out who that is. Keep reading.
Howbeit that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural.
Go ahead.
And afterward that which is spiritual. The first man is of the earth, earthy.
Didn't the Lord dig man out of the ground? That's when I go to funerals and they say, well, you know, they done made their homecoming. They're in heaven looking down. I said, no, you kind of dropped the ball there. They ain't made the homecoming yet. They're standing in front of me, laying in front of me in this box. When we take them out there and put them in the ground, now they have made their homecoming. Homecoming means that you go back to where you came from. Ain't that right? Man didn't come from heaven. Man came out of the ground. The first man, Adam, was earthly. He come out of the ground. But you got another Adam. Go ahead and read.
The second man is the Lord from heaven.
And the second man is the Lord from heaven. He's the only one that was in heaven, came down, came through man, became a flesh and blood being. But once he became a flesh and blood being, then he had to be buried when he died, like everybody else. You know why? Because he was man. And the Lord told man, dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. So when Jesus became man, he had to go to the dirt too. It wasn't but 3 days, but he had to go there because prophecy cannot be broken. Y'all understand what I'm saying? No, after the 3 days, then he went on back and made his homecoming. The Lord from heaven. What verse are we?
We have 48.
Go ahead and read.
As is the earthy, such are they also that are earthy.
Everybody of the earth is earthy. Go ahead and read.
And as is the heavenly,
Uh-huh.
such are they also that are heavenly.
Go ahead.
And as we have borne the image of the earthy,
Uh-huh.
we shall also bear the image of the heavenly.
So we are bearing the image of the earthly right now. But just like we're doing that, we should bear the image of the heavenly. Go ahead and read.
Now this I say, brethren,
Uh-huh.
that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God.
No, sir. That's the kingdom of the Father. That's why, because God gave man 7 days. Why can't he inherit the kingdom of the Father? Because there won't be no flesh and blood around. We're going to show you. Go ahead and read.
Neither doth corruption inherit incorruption.
Uh-huh.
Behold, I show you a mystery.
This is a great mystery. Go ahead and read.
We shall not all sleep.
Everybody's not going to die.
That's right.
Go ahead.
But we shall all be changed.
But everybody is going to be changed. That's why I said when the Lord shall descend with a shout, the dead going to be raised and the living going to be changed. Because this body cannot live forever. So everybody's not going to die, but everybody's going to be changed. Go ahead and read.
In a moment,
Uh-huh.
in the twinkling of an eye,
Uh-huh.
at the last trump.
That trumpet of Jubilee
That's right.
again. That's going to be blown on the 10th day of the 7th. That's going to be blown on the 1st day of the 7th month and also on the 10th day of the 7th month. That's the trumpet of Jubilee, sister and brother. Everybody's coming out. Everything is in order here. Go ahead and read.
For the trumpet shall sound,
Uh-huh.
and the dead shall be raised incorruptible.
Go ahead.
And we shall be changed.
Uh-huh.
For this corruptible must put on incorruption.
Go ahead.
And this mortal must put on immortality.
This was supposed to happen in the Garden of Eden. But man ate of the wrong tree. Death wasn't supposed to be here. Death was not a part of the original creation. Death was added because of man sinned against God. And when you understand that, you know also that death is merely an interruption in life. Because you're going to live forever. Where you going to live at, that's what you better decide right now. Go ahead and read.
So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption,
Uh-huh.
and this mortal shall have put on immortality,
Go ahead.
then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written,
Uh-huh.
death is swallowed up in victory.
Ain't that's what Paul said? Said death going to be swallowed up of life? Death is swallowed up in victory, sisters and brothers. In other words, there ain't going to be no more people dying. What was that? What verse was
We
that?
just finished 54.
So it ain't going to be no more dying. But in the meantime, you got this body here that will die. And there is a time limit on this body. And so when you go and deal with the boots that you got out of all these perishable tree and limbs, now we want to see how long is this thing going to last, sisters and brothers. So let's go back to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, and we're going to finish looking at what happened with these tree limbs from all these trees, what's going to happen to them. Leviticus 23. And we're going to start reading at verse 41. Let's see what we're going to do with these branches. How long we're going to have them around. 23 and 41. Go ahead and read.
And you shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in the year.
Uh-huh.
It shall be a statute forever in your generation.
That's a long time, ain't it? Go ahead and read.
You shall celebrate it in the 7th month.
Uh-huh.
You shall dwell in booths 7 days.
Wait a minute now. 7 days, but you got an 8 day, don't you? Why are you going to dwell in the booths only 7 days? Because this 7th day, sisters and brothers, represent all the time that God gave man as a flesh and blood being.
Right.
Go ahead and read.
All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths,
Uh-huh.
that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths.
Uh-huh.
When I brought them out of the land of Egypt, I am the Lord your God.
So your children, like we teaching our children, like I'm teaching now. The Lord brought us out of Israel, out of Egypt, and in the 7th month, he had us to have this feast for 7 days, the Feast of Tabernacles, which also is the Feast of Ingathering, when the Lord has gathered his people. He made us dwell in booths for 7 days. And he was very specific that you go get branches and limbs. In other words, you got to cut something off or tear something away from its substance. And after 7 days, whether you want it or not, it's going to wilt, crumble up, and fall or nothing. In other words, this body is finished at the end of the 7th day. But then the Lord had the weekly Sabbath to tell you that. Let's back up to the 3rd verse of this 23rd chapter, Leviticus 23. Okay, go ahead.
6 days shall work be done. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. You shall do no work therein.
Go ahead.
It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings.
That's all the Lord gave us. 7 days, sister and brother. Work for 6, and the 7th day is the rest, day of rest. That's the Lord's millennium period. That's when he's going to raise up a righteous generation. And at the end of the 7th day, sisters and brothers, everybody is going to be changed. It ain't no accident that Jesus rose on the 7th day, because he is the captain of our salvation, so he showed us how it was done. He made sure that his death was orchestrated to die at the same time, that he'd be in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights according to what was written. And that 3rd day, he rose just before sundown on the Sabbath day. And when Mary wanted to touch him the next day, he said, touch me not. You know why? He said, because I have not been accepted. I have not been accepted, because he was the first fruit, sister and brother. When she saw him in the garden, he wasn't man no more. He was God again. But that was the 8th day, not the 7th. Now let's go into Genesis, the 2nd chapter. Because I want to show you what I'm saying. People don't take the word of God for what it says, sisters and brothers. Sometimes the Lord tell you exactly what's going on, and don't nobody want to even read it. Genesis chapter 2. This is when the Lord did all his creation. And he said something here that nobody paid no attention to. But we did. 2 and 1. Go ahead.
Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them.
The heaven and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. Go ahead and read.
And on the 7th day, God ended his work which he had made. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made.
Now, God made man too. If we had read this first chapter, we find out man was in it too, didn't he? Oh, but he said God finished from all the work which he had made. He rested on the 7th day from all the works which he had made. He's kind of being specific, ain't he? Absolute is all. But man is not complete, because man is still a work in progress. Because he done made you physically in his image, but he's trying to shape you spiritually in his image. Go ahead and read.
And God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it.
Go ahead.
Because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made.
And people say, well, you know, see that God on the 7th day. Look, sister and brother, this 7th day haven't gotten here yet. Because it said he rested from all the work which he had made. This is his day of rest, ain't it? Let me show you what he said to Israel when he brought them in the wilderness, because they were so naughty. Let's go on to the 95th chapter of Psalm. Psalm chapter 95. Israel have always been misbehaving. They're still misbehaving. It's all that simple. We teach this Bible, and people hear it, and they so happy. That's why we are getting feedback from all over the world. Where do we get all that negativity from? Israel. Oh, you see, this is wrong and that wrong. I said, boy, that's why we're in captivity. That's why you got so many of you in jail that they need a shoe spoon to get some more in it. That's why they're killing you all the time. Everything that happened, the Lord said is going to happen. It's just like Brother Antoine pulled some off the internet. Like this woman in Nigeria discovered. They call themselves Igbo, but we call them Igbo. But still, it's the tribe of Dan. She discovered that we Israel. And then she started saying, that's why we got all this trouble. That's why we're suffering here, because we're doing the same thing. They done put up a big elephant, they worshiping this. She said, this is what got us gone into captivity. This is what got us scattered all in the USA. All of a sudden, everybody's realizing that Israel is Israel's problem. And every time you have a problem, it comes from Israel. They told Moses, you take too much upon yourself. We are all children of God. Moses said, okay then, I tell you what. Stand over there. Earthquake ate them up. Jesus said, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, that killed the prophet. How many times I would have delivered you like a mother hen deliver her brood, but you would not. He said, that killeth the prophets and stoneth those which are sent to you. Paul did everything he could to let Jesus off the hook, but them Israelites wouldn't let him off the hook. It's the Israelites that got Paul ran out of Jerusalem into Rome. Herod killed one of the apostles and saw that the Israelites liked it. And I got news for you. It have not changed to this day. I was teaching this brother on the phone. He called me in California. He was doing pretty good. Then one thing he come said, man, I want to know something about this Jesus thing. I said, you've been talking to Israelite, haven't you? Yeah. I said, that tells the whole story. So the Lord said he rested from all of his work. And I know that this day is not the day that we read in Genesis. Didn't represent that particular time. It represented the time in the future, because first thing the Lord did was made a blueprint. And he brought it to plans. And this is the day that if it was that time, then the Lord wouldn't say what he's going to say. That's 95th and 6. 95 and 6. I know sometime, brother, when I used to do the prison ministry, brother told me, brother, I like your teaching, but I got one problem. Which, what's that? You're always dumping on Israel. Israel need to be dumped on. Because you're the priest. You're the only people out of the whole creation that gave up their God, and you had the true and living God. You're the only one that had something to backslide from. Plus, you was given a mission by God, and you didn't carry it out. That's to take his message to the rest of the sons of Adam, so he could bring all his children back under the banner. And Israel act like we the only one that God going to save. I said, boy, how small can your mind be? Okay, I'm going to stop snapping on Israel. Psalm 95, and we're going to start at verse 6. Psalm 95 and 6. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker.
Go ahead.
For he is our God. For we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand.
See, this is Israel. This is personal with us. He is our God. We're the sheep of his pasture. We're the work of his hand. Go ahead and read.
Today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your heart.
He said, look, he said the same thing in Revelation, the third chapter. I stand at the door and knock.
That's right.
If you open up, I'll come in and sup with you and you with me. He said, so today, if you hear his voice, harden not your heart. Go ahead and read.
As in the provocation. And as in the day of temptation in the wilderness.
As in the provocation. That means that's when Israel really took it to the Lord. Go ahead and read.
When your fathers tempted me, proved me,
go ahead,
and saw my work. 40 years long was I grieved with this generation.
That means for 40 years he was grieved with Israel in the wilderness. And he got so angry, what did he say? Go ahead and read.
And said, it is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways.
Go ahead.
Unto whom I swear in my wrath that they should not enter into my rest.
So I swore that these people are not going to enter into my rest. What day is that? How could they enter into the Lord's day of rest if his rest was in the 2nd chapter of Genesis? And there was no man to till the land. Because he's talking about a future day, sisters and brothers. Let's pursue this. Let's go into Hebrews, the 4th chapter. Hebrews chapter 4. This is not hard stuff. The only reason it's hard is because you have not been taught it. Tell people all the time, when you go to school, when you start the school, you can't do math, you can't do calculus, you can't do algebra. But as you grow and as you study and your knowledge increase, you can do whatever is required, because the Lord have given you the mind so powerful, and that if the right information was given to it, it could keep from dying. keep your whole body from dying. That's why the Lord said, hey, the man has come as one of us to know good and evil. Not unless he put forth his hand and eat of the tree of life and live forever, we're going to put him out to God. Otherwise, we ain't going to let him learn how to be immortal. He's too tainted now. But we don't know this, sisters and brothers, because we have not been taught. We go to church and we get hollered at. We get accused. We get a threat. Then we get a nice story how I fought with Satan and I spit in his eye. I said, boy, do you know who this cat is? If God didn't stand between you and Satan, you be killed on his way to killing. Hebrews 4, we're going to start at verse 1. Because the Lord swore to the people in the wilderness, they ain't going to enter into his rest. It is obvious that they wasn't even in existence when the Lord rested on the seventh day. Verse 1, go ahead.
Let us therefore fear, lest the promise being left of us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it.
See, look, sister and brother, it's the same gospel. God preached to every generation. The only difference in them and us is they didn't believe it and we do. That's what means mixed with faith in them. Go ahead and read.
For we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world.
Although the work was finished from what?
From the foundation of the world.
If something's finished, then ain't nothing else left to do, is it? Didn't we read where the Lord had rested from all his work?
That's right.
So this lets you know what work he's talking about. Go ahead and read.
For he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise.
Go ahead.
And God did rest the seventh day from all his works.
Now we read that, didn't we? It was finished, but he laid him a blueprint out, sisters and brothers. And all of us are working to get into it. So he told the people in the wilderness, you ain't going to enter into his rest. In other words, when this 7th day roll around, when I take my rest, you ain't going to be in the first resurrection. One day of rest. What did Paul say? Skip down to verse 11 and read it.
Let us labor, therefore, to enter into that rest.
Let us labor, therefore, to enter into that rest. Go ahead and read.
Lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief.
Now, sisters and brothers, how can the people in the wilderness and people in Paul's day and people in our day be in the day of rest if it took place in the Genesis, the 2nd chapter, when there was not a man to till the land? 7 days, sisters and brothers, the day of rest. Let us labor to enter in, because we don't want to drop the ball like the rest of the people dropped the ball. Now let's go back to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 9. Leviticus 23 and verse 9. Because the problem is, sisters and brothers, don't nobody know what God is doing. And that is real, real bad. God laid out the whole thing, everything he's doing. And don't nobody pay no attention. Like this weekend coming up is world history told by the prophets. The Lord's going to show you everything in book and in history. And ain't nobody bothering to read it. Don't nobody care. Something about to come up on us right now, and we don't have a clue what it is. And it is not Ebola. This government's going much worse, sisters and brothers, much worse. Leviticus 23 and verse 9. 23 and 9. Okay, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them,
Go ahead.
When ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof,
Go ahead.
then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest.
Now you're going to bring, when you come in, and you're going to reap the harvest thereof, then you shall bring a first fruit of the harvest unto the priest. What's he going to do with it? Go ahead and read.
And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord, to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it.
How come he couldn't wave it time he got it out the ground? Because this sheaf of the harvest, or this fruit or whatever he got out the ground, was a seed when he put it in. But when it grew out, it was something else. You understand what I'm saying? When it went in the ground, it was not what it was going to be, but it bare grain.
That's right.
And when it come out the ground, it was something else. It went in as a kernel of corn. It come out as a stalk with a whole lot of cobs with a whole lot of kernels on it. Much more magnificent. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Go ahead and read what verse?
We're in verse 12.
Uh-huh.
And ye shall offer that day when ye wave the sheaf and he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord.
Now, on that first day, tomorrow after the Sabbath day, the first fruit, then you wave a he lamb without blemish, sisters and brothers. Who does he lamb without blemish represent? Jesus. He's the first man that died and rose from the death, from the grave, and lived forever. Nobody's ever done it, sister and brother. He's the only one that died and rose with this new body. Skip down to verse 14 and go ahead.
And ye shall eat neither bread nor parched corn, nor green ears.
Go ahead.
Until the selfsame day that ye have brought an offering unto your God, it shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwelling.
Go ahead.
And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath. From the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days. And ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord.
We got back to that year jubilee, didn't we? 50 days. That's the first. 7 times 7 is 49. And the new meat offering is going to be offered on the 8th day. Because it was in the ground on the 7th day. It was flesh and blood. It was something else altogether. Go ahead.
Ye shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2 tenth deal. They shall be of fine flour. There shall be baking with leaven.
Now these going to be baked with leaven because we are all sinners. Jesus didn't commit no sin. Go ahead and read.
They are the first fruits unto the Lord.
That's the first resurrection. Go ahead.
And ye shall offer with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year. And 1 young bullock and 2 rams. They shall be for a burnt offering unto the Lord with their meat offering and their drink offerings, even an offering made by fire of sweet savor unto the Lord.
See, it was 1 lamb when the first wave shall offered, but this time it's 7 lambs because 7 is complete, sisters and brothers. In other words, we had the resurrection of Jesus, and then you had the resurrection of those that are going to be, in the first resurrection, those that are going to actually be on the Lord's day of rest. Now let's go into 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter, and we have one more place after this. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. We're going to have a look at this thing, sisters and brothers. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. All this is going to happen. This is ingathering. This is when the Lord is going to gather his people not only physically, but he's going to gather his saints from the grave. And the ones that's on top of the ground that's worthy to be saints that's going to help him raise this generation for 1,000 years, they all going to be gathered to him during this time. We're going to start at verse 21. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 21. 15 and 21. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 21. Okay, go ahead.
For since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of the dead.
Yeah, that's right. Adam brought death upon us, but Jesus had to become man so he can get it up off us. Go ahead and read.
For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive.
Go ahead.
But every man in his own order.
But every man in his own order. Go ahead and read.
Christ the first fruit.
Christ the first fruit.
Afterward they that are Christ at his coming.
Afterward they that are Christ at his coming. Is the Lord here?
No.
Then where are the people that died in Christ? They're still dead. Why is that so hard to understand, sisters and brothers? That is too simple, isn't it? Too simple. If Jesus is the first fruit, and they at his coming, that coincides with what we just read in the 23rd chapter of Leviticus. Then he said, when you reap the harvest, get a sheaf of the first fruit and wave it before the Lord and sacrifice a he lamb without blemish. But you have to wave it tomorrow after the Sabbath day. That's on the 8th day. Then you count 49 days, 7 weeks, and tomorrow after which is the 50th day of 50th year of Jubilee, then you make a new meat offering on tomorrow after the Sabbath day. Moses just, Paul here just told you what Moses told you. Ain't nothing new under the sun, sisters and brothers. Go ahead and read.
Then cometh the end.
Then cometh the end. Go ahead.
When he shall have delivered up the kingdom to God, even the Father.
Go ahead.
When he shall have put down all rule and all authority and power.
Now he's going to be doing that 1,000 years. Jesus is going to be here. He's going to put down all rule and all authority and all power. Go ahead and read.
For he must reign. Till he hath put all enemies under his feet.
Go ahead.
The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death.
Look, sisters and brothers, the last enemy is death. Death was not a part of the creation. It was not a part. Just like animal sacrifice was not a part of the creation. Because nothing's supposed to die. Why do you think man and beast was vegetarian on the other side of the flood? Because nobody supposed to die. But after man sinned against God, death was brought into play. Now, man and beast die. But that is a temporary condition. Now, the Lord have to rule until he put out all enemies. One thing he's done away with was animal sacrifice, right? That was added. Why? Because death was added. Now he's going to do away with that. Now, once he's done that, what's going to happen? Skip down to verse 28 and read it.
And when all things shall be subdued unto him, then shall the Son also himself be subject unto him.
Go ahead.
That put all things under him, that God may be all in all.
So when Jesus have destroyed death, that means ain't no more dying, isn't it? We done went all of these years, all of these generations to get back to where we was in the Garden of Eden. Ain't that something? That know you that the Lord don't change. He told Jonah, go to Nineveh and prophesy. Jonah tried to run away. He had him thrown over the wall, over the ship. Fish ate him, threw him up on the bank. And when he got up, he said, now Jonah, go and prophesy to Nineveh. He didn't give him no new assignment. God's purpose has not changed. His purpose is to create beings just like him. He can slap us down. He done made us bleed. He done made us die. He done made us sick. He done gave us diseases. He done gave us all kind of pain. And in the end, he going to say, do what I want you to do. Or either you're going to burn forever because I created you to live forever. This is what this man don't understand, sisters and brothers. This is not a game where you can choose to do what you want. God gave you one choice, two choices, life or death. You don't get nothing else. So, sisters and brothers, on this Feast of Tabernacles, this is the Feast of Ingathering. Everything happened. This takes place in the year of Pentecost, the 50th year, sisters and brothers. So when the Lord comes, he's going to gather not only his dead and living saints, he's going to also gather all Israel. Then he's going to take all people and send them to their own country. And he's going to set this world in order. And once he set him in order, once he is in Jerusalem, everybody on this planet got to come up to Jerusalem and keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Everybody. And if you don't, you're going to get to eat clay dirt the rest of your life. So, sisters and brothers, when that's done, at the end of the seventh day, there ain't going to be no more flesh and blood. The Lord will have finished his work, like it said in Genesis, the 2nd chapter. So, what we're going to do is we're going to read one more thing because we're going to turn out and we're going to eat some food, drink a little wine. So that's why I have to read this, because you get people come sometime holy. We had people that get up, these are sinners in this house. And left. So let's go to Deuteronomy the 14th chapter. Because you need to know this. We're not sinners. We are obedient. And it'd be a good thing when we start to be obedient to a fault. That means you're going to walk the line. You're going to not only talk the talk, you're going to walk the walk. Because the Lord don't care nothing about conversation. He cares something about obedience. He didn't tell Abraham, now I know that you fear me, until he got ready to kill his son and he had to stop it. Deuteronomy 14. So about these feasts, when the Lord telling you about these feasts, what do you want you to do? 14 and verse 22. We're going to start at verse 22. Go ahead.
Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed, that the field bringeth forth year by year.
Go ahead.
And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there.
Go ahead.
The tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the firstlings of thy herds and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always.
See, he said, now you're supposed to tithe. This is the annual you set aside for this, sisters and brother. And you're supposed to bring and put whatever you're going to offer, you put it here. But being that we can't raise no cows in the city, we can't raise no corn, and we can't be running around with trucks full of oil, we got to sell for money. But still, if it's too far, look what the Lord said. Go ahead.
And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there, when the Lord thy God hath blessed thee.
Go ahead.
Then shalt thou turn it into money, and bind up the money in thine hand.
Then you sell your stock or your corn or your wheat or whatever you're going to put, and you get that money in your hand. Go ahead and read.
And shalt go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. And thou shalt bestow that money.
In other words, you should spend that money
for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. For oxen.
Go ahead.
Or for sheep. Or for wine. Or for strong drink.
I didn't say that. Well, I read that, didn't I? Go ahead and read.
Or for whatsoever thy soul desire. And thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household.
And that is what we're going to do today, sisters and brothers. We're going to eat before the Lord, and we're going to rejoice before him. Because he commanded us to do this. This is a good day.
We would like to invite you to join us on the Sabbath Day Live via the internet. Log on to our website, which is www.theisraelofgod.com. Click on the link Sabbath Day Live on our homepage. You will need Windows Media Player to view our program. We stream live twice every Sabbath at 10 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. Central Time. If you enjoy our program, we would appreciate your donations to help defer the cost of continuing this work. Send donations to the Israel of God, 2515 East 75th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60649. Also, if you're in the Chicago area, please feel free to join us at our study class located at 2515 East 75th Street here in Chicago.